Nigeria is blessed with rich human natural resources. Of course, opportunities are abound, which can quickly be leveraged into new prosperity. But of course, how do Nigeria explore this diversity for a collective gain? With an eye on new think tank and the agricultural or digital economy, to mention a few. Many have said these human natural resources must be harnessed, nurtured, and cultivated to better the lives of Nigerians. At the weekend, just in this past week, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu was at UAE, and of course it was the COP28, and interesting deals, of course, were signed. I remember the Siemens deal, and of course, so many other things that were talked about at that COP28. The climate policy of Nigeria, how does it fit into what was discussed at that particular meeting? And the economic policy of President Bola Tinubu, how is it favoring the masses? Because that is what it should be. It should favor the masses. And of course, joining me on the show to talk about this is the presidential candidate of the Accord Party, Chris Imumolen, Professor Chris Imumolen. Thank you very much for joining me.
Thank you so much.
Let me first ask you, were you surprised? You know, there was this noise on social media, how many Nigeria took 1,411 to COP, but the federal government later came out and said out of it was 422 that went there. But were you surprised? What's your reaction to that?
Okay. Again, thank you for having me on this show. We know climate matters is a very important one, but most especially to the advanced world. We must be very critical about that. Having 1,000 plus Nigerian delegates travel to Dubai to attend the climate change convention, to me, I wouldn't say I was surprised, but what I was more concerned about is why are we going? Do we know our standpoint? Do we know what we stand to benefit from this negotiation? Do we know where we ought to stand as a third world nation, undeveloped country coming up? Do we know what we need to go negotiate there? For me, I have my personal opinion about climate matter, about reduction of fossil fuel use, about the UNFCCC convention and the COPs, which are translated to the COPs 28 we have today. I have my personal stand, and I believe those who are speaking for Africa and other third world nations are able to actually have a standpoint that benefits growing economy. You know, over the years, we've had country and continent who had moved from locomotive economy now to a fourth industrial revolution economy. The Europe, the Americans, and the rest of them. Yes, they could freely talk about not use of fossil fuel. They could freely talk about running the economy because they've gotten to that stage. They have developed at the expense. People have all, these are debating topics which I, as an energy expert too, we see developed at the expense of other countries. No, now most likely part of African countries, especially Nigeria, let's look at our country, we still run largely on a fossil fuel. We have crude oil, which is generating about 80% of our revenue. Despite the fact that we care so much about the global ecosystem, we care so much about not extincting human and other animals that exist in the ecosystem, the greenhouse effect, the ozone layer depletion, issues that are being raised from the use of carbon emission and gas flaring. But we should also look at where we are as a nation and begin to attend those events with an understanding that this is where Africa is. Yes, we want to adhere to the convention of COP28, but we think that the money should come in. You know, if we ask Africans as continent, Nigeria as a country, to adhere to global practice when it comes to industrial operations, then we need that funds. We need to ensure that we're able to stabilize our economy while we are trying to protect the earth. Large part of Nigeria, you must know, those that stay in the rural community, which make chunk numbers of our population, there's no way they understand these economics. They don't know. You cannot tell them not to cook with firewood. You can let us bring down these things to how it applies to us. Yes, we want to align with the global world, but we are not there yet. So where is the fund coming from? The developed world has pledged to to remit about $100 million annually to support third world nation, to making sure that, okay, whatever you do, we're able to give you carbon credits. Whatever you do, we're able to support you so that you do not further endanger the ecosystem. But that must be balanced. For Africa, those who are traveling, I'm not concerned about the numbers of people. What I'm concerned about is what knowledge do they have? What are they going to speak there? Are they just going to attend the conference, enjoy themselves, and come back to where we are? That is my major concern.
You talked about some issues that are already written down, and which has to boil down to the people who went there. What exactly were they there for? But there was already a breakdown on what they went there for. And I also want us to look at when you talk about green economy, Nigeria is not yet there. I remember that the president, even before he became the president, I remember one of the forum where he was talking about, the West coming to Africa to take from them in terms of that. Then they must be able to give back, And I think that's one of the focal points when he went to COP. But let's look at how do we begin to harness this green economy for Nigeria. Is something that we can't make enough revenue from it. The Western country are already doing that, and that was a major focus at COP. What do we do to get into that level?
Yes, we must, but we must be very critical about it. We are blessed with mineral resources. We have the crude oil, we have the coal. Yes, looking at the green economy, total adoption of green economy means total abandonment of some of the resources that we have. So how do we balance that? So if you are going to ask us to abandon what we have, which we need at our present state to develop to where you are, you did that years, 100, 200 years ago.
Exactly.
We are developing now because we want to look at development is stage by stage. When we look at theories all over the world, there were times that even the American world was just a locomotive economy. They worked through by burning coal before crude oil was discovered in Pennsylvania many years ago, and they have used this energy to develop. So when you talk about global warming, ozone layer depletion, greenhouse gases, these were majorly caused by the development that have been achieved by this part of the world. Yes, we want to adopt the green economy. It is very good for the economy. But the common man who needs food daily, who wants to provide employment for people, might not know how to interpret that. That's why we talk about funding. Then there must be a cushion effect if you want the African economy, the third world nation, to totally embrace this. The woman in the village, we will need to explain to her, you need to stop burning firewood. We need to give you gas. How do you do that? Can she afford to get gas? So there must be subsidy, there must be provision for that. So if you are looking at this, not just paper, we must look at the practicality in the implementation of it. Greenhouse economy is the best when it comes to protecting our world. The health needs to be protected. We need to be friends of the health. But again, survival is still very paramount to us. So that balancing is very key. So when we talk about carbon credit, where companies are being given incentive, loans, financial support based on the adoption of green activities in their local operations. We've seen that, but how practicable has that been in African world? It's even more practicable in other countries where they've already in a way aligned to the green economy. For us in Africa, government needs to do a lot of things for it to be realistic. For example, we still have a country where generation of power is still very, 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 very difficult. People still resort to the use of their personal generator and the rest of them. This also so there's a whole lot of things that must be done. It's not just talking about it, but it's about making sure that things that are needed to facilitate the acceptance of total greenhouse economy is put in place. It's not just by government running out solar panels, saying we're going to. No, there's a lot of things that must be done. First, like I said, is the finance. The fund must come into third world nation. The carbon credit must be totally harnessed, and it must be practicable. And the sincerity of the white, the center of the West, to ensure that Africa enjoy. And we should not see this as a strategy, I'm sorry to say, to also dampen the development of the third world nation.
You talked about power, and that also brings me to, one of the things that the president did while he was at COP, to sign the Siemens deal which the previous administration, President Muhammad Buhari, has started. He only complete one part of it, which is the transmission part of it. That's what he did. So what it simply means is that Nigeria will be able to get, by the time Siemens come in fully with their own infrastructure, build an economy, according to the federal government, Nigerians will be able to get these things in their houses. How realistic do you think this is? Like you said, the man in the woman in
the village, yes, wants to know. So basically, it's not, yes, Siemens, good move by the government, good contract, good sign. We need it to actually drive our economy. But beyond that, recently, even before the last administration left, they actually liberalized power generation. Now, companies could get license to generate power. The NERC now have that mandate to also allow public interest in power generation. Fine, fantastic. We want to see this thing practical. We want to see this thing working. I can tell you in few weeks or few months before now, a lot of companies had applied, but check out how many companies was given the license. You still see a lot of bureaucratic bottlenecks in those policies that have been adjusted. If we must truly, the president is doing his best, but we need to, there's a lot of over-oiling we must do in the civil service, in the public service, to ensure that policies that are drafted, policies that are adjusted, becomes easily practicable and implemented. And that has to do with the sincerity of the people. The over-oiling of that sector that needs to go through. Siemens is coming. We pray and we will be wishing them very well to come into Nigeria and do what. But what about other Nigerians? They might not be investing as much as Siemens will be investing, but their little contribution put together will also help that sector. So at the end of the day, we don't have a sector that is being monopolized, because that is what we want to fight against. There's a lot of Nigerians in Nigeria who are the very first primary investor to Nigeria economy. How do we encourage them to also get into this opportunity? There's a lot of people who also want to. So we need to have a sincere process that makes a common man who knows nobody, who have the investment and the capacity to invest, who have the virtuoso and the knowledge to make things happen, also get into this opportunity and work with the government and make a better economy. So fantastic what has happened with Siemens, but let us come down to Nigerian investors. Nigerians are the first investor to Nigerian economy. Nigerians are the first people that believe in Nigeria itself. Yes, we need the international community to also come in, very well, but we need to start looking at this practical approach, sincere approach. Once there's a policy rejig, let us have a sincere approach so that we don't just have it on paper and we don't have it on ground. The President Muhammad Buhari, who had initiated a contract with Siemens for transmission. Transmission line is very, very, very important, because the transmission by itself has not been given out. Let me use that word. That is not a more professional word, but let me just use that word. No matter how much we're going to generate, if the transmission line is not there to transmit what is generated for distribution, you have what is called blackouts. That is when we always would hear that there is the national grid has collapsed, because you are now generating more than what can be transmitted. So I think this should go together, and I know maybe those in charge are looking at those parameters. And most importantly, we have 45 million households. What we need in Nigeria to service Nigeria is about 100,000 megawatts. That is the estimation. Today we have been able to produce 4,000 to 6,000 megawatts. We still have a long way to go. Yes, Siemens should come in, but we still need more Nigerians in Nigeria, more international communities to come in. And lastly, is that we need to have an economy that will drive business in Nigeria. We love what the president is doing and the team traveling everywhere to get investors attracted to Nigeria. But there's a homework we need to do. Let's get our home ready. No matter how much we preach about our economy, when they come in and they find a situation which common Nigerians, businessmen are facing, that by itself. And we have a lot of companies in Nigeria who are even folding up, leaving. So why can't we even find a way to get those ones who have spent 50 years in Nigeria living, get them to stay? So there's a whole lot of work we must do. For me, going abroad to entice, to toast investors is good, but primarily we must begin to look at those things that is encouraging businesses in Nigeria, discouraging them from not working to begin to work. One of them is, after rejigging and overhauling policies, we must make sure that there is a practical steps to have them implementable in Nigeria.
I might quite agree with you. I was at the Heart of Technology, the digital economy for the program that was organized in Lagos State by the Lagos State government. I know while talking to some of the tech experts there, one of their major challenge is the policies that is put in place for them to thrive. How do we go forward from, just normal documents to implementation? Secondly, what are the things that you have noticed about this President Bola Ahmed Tinubu economic policy that you think that, if Nigerians are able to tap into it, it can be favored? Or do you think that some of those things need to be rejigged for Nigerians, for you to favor Nigerians?
Okay. Number one, I think we've seen a lot of policies reformed happen under his administration, but most importantly is the human character reform. No matter, we're looking at the budget, for example, great budget. One of the things I saw in that budget was, I saw, focused. The budget was not addressing everything, but I think from what, I haven't studied the budget, what I feel they have understand is that this budget, we don't have enough money. At this level, we are still budgeting 27 or 26 trillion.
27.53.
Yes, it's still, look at the Nigeria economy is huge. Compare Nigeria to other countries that have the same market we have. Look at what they do. Look at, for example, in education. We are budgeting, let me convert to dollar, because when you mention 27% trillion naira value by today is virtually, I'm sorry to say, not to, it's not there internationally. We have a challenge with our naira. So look at education.
But that's why the president is also saying that he's going to peg it at 750 per dollar. I think so, if I'm correct.
Yeah, even if it's pegging, let's look at what is allocated to education. We are a country of 200 million people above, and we have budgeted about $1 billion to education. A country like South Africa that have less population, less people, less school, its budget for education is far more than $1 billion. And we have more challenge here when it comes to our educational system. What we have a problem with generation of funds in Nigeria. We still generate very little compared to the capacity that Nigeria could have. Let me give an example, and maybe, I don't know who is watching. Ghana, for example, Nigerians, I'm talking about, let's look at education and the budget that is given to education. Nigerians studying in Ghana, as of last year by World Bank Index, says that Nigerian students in Ghana alone contribute about $500 million a year to Ghana economy, half of the budget to education. School fees of Nigerians that study in the UK alone for 2022 is more than the budget of Nigeria to Nigeria education. Can't we begin to think as Nigerians, as people, how then do we ensure that we are next? Let me tell you, one of the major things that is stressing our forest is not even commodity need, because Nigerians have been moving out to search for commodity. One of the major things that have been stressing our forest is the need to pay school fees abroad. I can tell you that. We are not looking at that. My simple advice to government, if they listen, government can talk to foreign schools to begin to have local accounts in Nigeria, where Nigerians who are abroad can pay school fees into their local account. In that way, we will save a lot of foreign flight. I'm telling you, we need to be creative at this point. You might not really know, but we need to be creative at this point. I know those listening can begin to look at this simple idea. See how, because we must begin to work as a country to reduce flow of our local economy, the need of foreign currency out of Nigeria. That is what, and one of the major things I can tell you. If you look at what is happening, I might be a little bit diverting from what we are talking, but I'm still going to come back. Yeah. If you look at what some other countries have done to Nigeria, they are feasting on our economic vulnerability. Countries, which I would not want to mention name, have opened visa windows, and majorly for students, because they know that they've even virtually closed visa window for visitors and every other category. The only visa window they've opened for Nigeria is student visa window. You all know those countries. And what they do with that visa window is that they use that visa window to mop up Nigerian currency out. Nigeria must counter-react to it by making sure that this country, there are some schools abroad that have 80% of their student Nigerians. Check how they graduate. We need to begin to look at this, and we need to begin to form the counter policies that will not just discourage Nigerians from going. Yes, Nigeria have the right to seek for international education, but again, save our economy. So those are part of the...
Thank you very much. Our time is up. Thank you very much for coming. Of course, it's a conversation that will still continue on what the president is doing economically to better the lives of Nigerians. Thank you, Professor Chris Imlemo, presidential candidate of the Accord Party, joining us in the studio to discuss some of the things happening in the world of governance, most especially the COP, and some of the policies of President Bola, Ahmed Tinubu. Thank you. My name is Ademola Lawrence. Join us for a repeat by 11 p.m. and 5 a.m. We'll join you next week again, where we'll bring you stories happening in the world of politics and governance.